Messieurs les consuls, honorables consuls, Emmanuel Lebrun-Damien, consul général of France, Chris Hodfield, consul général of Australia, Hans Ulrich Sudbeck, consul général of Germany, Andrew Whitaker, consul général of the United Kingdom.
Messieurs les anciens combattants, gentlemen, veterans, Mesdames et messieurs les membres du board, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the board of trustees, Madame la proviseure adjointe, Mrs. Ries, deputy head of school, Madame la CEO, Mrs. Wambert, chief operating officer, Mesdames et messieurs les directeurs, primary school principals, chers comités du lycée français de San Francisco, dear people of the lycée français de San Francisco, chers élèves, dear students. Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui afin de commémorer le centenaire de l'armistice qui a marqué la fin de la Première Guerre mondiale. 100 ans. Mais nous n'avons pas oublié. Et c'est au nom des millions de victimes, de celles que l'on pensait être la der des der, et surtout au nom de la paix, que nous nous réunissons. Plus que jamais aujourd'hui, le devoir de mémoire est un acte essentiel et nécessaire.
We are gathered here today to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the armistice, which marked the end of the First World War. It may be 100 years we have not forgotten. It is in the name of the millions of victims that we reflect on, the war to end all wars. Above all, in the name of the peace that unites us. More than ever, today, we have the solemn duty to remember these lessons of history.
Pour ouvrir la cérémonie, la chorale des élèves de CM2 de Sausalito et d'Ashbury va vous interpréter un premier hymne fédérateur. Nous sommes les enfants du monde.
To open the ceremony, the 5th grade choir made up of pupils from the campuses of Sausalito and Ashbury will sing us the first hymn, We Are the Children of the World. We will now have a moment of remembrance and contemplation. We shall listen to the reading of selected letters from soldiers involved in the First World War.
Nous écoutons tout d'abord Carl Dedier pour lire une lettre de poilu en anglais.
First, we welcome Carl Dudi to read an English soldier's letter.
An extract of "And There Was a Great Calm" by Thomas Hardy. On the singing of the armistice, 11 November 1918, there had been years of passion, scorching cold, and much despair, and anger heaving high, care whitely watching, sorrows manifold among the young, among the weak and old, and the pensive spirit of pity whispered, "Why?" Men had not paused to answer. Foes distraught pierced the thin peoples in a brute-like blindness. Philosophies that sages long had taught and selflessness were as unknown as thought. And hell and shell were yapped at loving kindness. Breathless they paused. Out their men raised their glance to where had stood those polars, lank and looped. As they had raised it through the 4 years, thence of death in the now familiar flats of France, and murmured, "Strange this, how?" All firing stopped. Calm fell. From heaven distilled the clemency. There was peace on earth and silence in the sky. Some could not shake off misery. The sinister spirit sneered, "It had to be." And again, the spirit of pity whispered, "Why?"
Merci Carl. Monsieur le Consul général du Royaume-Uni, un élève de terminale, souhaiterait vous poser une question.
Thank you, Carl. Mr. Consul General of the United Kingdom, would you mind answering a question from the 12th grade students?
Honorable Consul of the United Kingdom, how is the memory of World War I transmitted to the young generation? How important is the memory nowadays within the whole population?
Well, thank you very much indeed for inviting me here today. My name is Andrew Whitaker. I'm the British Consul General. And we're gathered here today at an incredibly important time. And within the United Kingdom, there'll be a number of events on Sunday, which is the 11th of the 11th, and 100 years to mark what for us was a very sad time. In the UK, the ceremonies are led by Her Majesty the Queen. We have a remembrance service in Westminster Abbey. We see the parade of veterans. We see the laying of wreaths at the cenotaph. And you'll see many people in the UK wearing the poppies, which are organised by the Royal British Legion. And I think alongside the remembrance, one of the important things to keep in mind is that they are also a symbol of hope and a chance for us also to look forward, pay our respects to those who fell, but remember the values that we are committed to now and think very deeply about. And that's how we want to keep paying it forward to future generations, to remember those who fell, but look forward to the future too. Thank you very much.
Merci. Monsieur le Consul général d'Australie, une question vous est également adressée.
Monsieur Consul General of Australia, the 12th grade students have a question for you too.
Honorable Consul of Australia, in the 1920s, Anzac Day was established as a national day of remembrance for Australian soldiers. What does this day currently mean for Australian people?
Well, thank you. Thank you for the question, and again, thank you for the invitation to come to this wonderful event. We have two National War Memorial Days in Australia, Anzac Day on April the 25th, which marked our involvement fighting in Turkey in the First World War, and today, November the 11th. They are both very important national days for Australians, and it needs to be remembered that when Australia went to war in 1914, we had only been a country for 13 years. So this war was our first test, and that's what we remember on these days. Over 60,000 Australians were to die in the First World War. Almost 10% of our entire population went to fight, mainly in France. And of the 60,000 Australians who were killed in France, they're still buried in French soil. So the link between Australia and France can never be broken. Several times now I've been to a school not dissimilar to this called Victoria College in Villiers-Bretonneux in northern France. And after the war, that school was rebuilt by money raised by Victorian school children, Victoria being a state of Australia. And when you walk around that primary school now in Villiers-Bretonneux, every classroom and in the playground it has a saying in French and English, never forget the Australians. Well, I hope that happens, but I know that Australians will never forget the French, and I think our ties that were formed in that First World War are remembered both on Anzac Day and today with great fondness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nous poursuivons avec une lettre de Poilu en allemand, lue par Calvin Cui.
We will continue with a letter written by a German soldier, read by Calvin Quick. Thank you very much.
Ich werde einen Brief von Paul Bölleke, einem Berliner Theologiestudent, der am 12. Oktober 1918 im Sivry-Wald vor Verdun gefallen ist, lesen. 16. März 1918 vor Verdun. Es ist der letzte Abend meines 20. Lebensjahres. Ich nehme heute einen doppelten Abschied. Nicht nur von meinem alten Lebensjahr, auch von dem Teil des französischen Landes, der eine so große Rolle in meinem Leben gespielt hat. Von Verdun. Verdun, ein furchtbares Wort. Unzählige Menschen, jung und hoffnungsvoll, haben hier ihr Leben lassen müssen. Ihre Gebeine verwesen nun irgendwo, zwischen Stellungen, in Massengräben, auf Friedhöfen. Kommt der Soldat morgens aus seinem Granatloch. Viele sind ganz voll Wasser. So sieht er im hellen Sonnenschein die Türme des Dormont oder eines anderen Forts, die ihren Auge drohend ins Trichterland richten. Ein Schüttern packt ihn, wenn er seine Blicke rundum schickt. Hier hat der Tod seine Knochen satt ausgesät. Die Front wankt. Heute hat der Feind die Höhe, morgen wir. Irgendwo ist hier immer verzweifelter Kampf. Manche, der sich eben noch der warmen Sonne freute, hört es schon irgendwo aufbrennen und heulend herankommen. Dahin sind alle Träume von Frieden und Heimat. Der Mensch wird zum Wurm und sucht sich das tiefste Loch. Trommelfeuer, Schlachtfelder, auf denen nichts zu sehen ist als erstickende Qualen, Gas, Erdklumpen, Fetzen in der Luft, die wild durcheinander wirbeln. Das ist Verdun.
Merci. Monsieur le consul d'Allemagne, nous avons également une question à vous poser.
Thank you, Calvin. Monsieur Consul Général of Germany, our students also have a question for you.
Honorable Consul of Germany, what message would a Consul of Germany give to the younger generation about the importance of remembering World War I?
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. What message? I think the message is the message which the populations in France, in Belgium, in Australia, in the UK, in the other countries involved, and in Germany learned with the First World War. And that is basically that with a major modern war, there is no real winner. What do I mean by that? Of course, the alliance which fought against us and the Austrians and the others won the war, absolutely yes. But the suffering which was caused amongst the population, the immense pain which was caused amongst the soldiers, the hundreds and thousands and millions of people whose lives were ruined, even if they survived the First World War, made it clear to everyone who is right in his mind that there is no war, there's no winner, no real winner in a war. And I think that is the main message we should never forget today. And of course, you all know that it took us, the Germans, another war to really understand this message. But nowadays, it's the reason for why we are so very convinced in trying to forge friendships with all our neighboring countries, most of all and first and foremost with our former arch enemy, France, but also, of course, with all the other countries in Europe and beyond Europe. That's why we are so engaged in the European Union, in an international system which is based on rules and which has instruments to solve conflicts and to mitigate conflicts wherever they arise, and also why we support so strongly the system of the United Nations. I think all of that, in a way, is something you can learn about when you look at the First World War and see what horrible effects this crazy enterprise had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enfin, nous terminons par une lettre de soldat français. C'est Lily Rose Espinas, de CM2 Sociéto, qui vient de la lire.
11 novembre. Le poste de la TSF a reçu la nouvelle brève que les hostilités cesseront ce matin à 11h. Est-ce possible? Est-ce vrai? Le cantonnement se réveille et s'agite. C'est la fin. On pleure, on rit, on court vers le village pour boire et boire encore. Notre adjudant est pâle d'émotion. Hein? Mon adjudant? C'est fini? Bien fini? Une locomotive souffle et siffle en gare de Tielt. Dans quelques heures, peut-être, elle va nous ramener vers Paris. Plus jamais d'obus, plus de gaz, la paix. Maman, papa, mes très chers, c'est fini et je suis en vie. Nous avons tendu l'oreille. On ne tue plus, n'est-ce pas? Pourtant, on croirait. Ce soir, un feu d'artifice monte des lignes vers le ciel en des fusées blanches, rouges et vertes. Il n'y a pas d'erreur, c'est fini. Tu ne crois pas entendre? Mais non, voyons, l'armistice, c'est la fin, on ne tue plus.
Merci Lily Rose. Monsieur le Consul général de France, Monsieur Emmanuel Lebrun-Damien, nous aimerions vous adresser une dernière question.
Thank you, Lily Rose. Monsieur Consul Général of France, we would like to ask you a last question.
In France, November 11th commemoration does not celebrate victory or defeat, but peace. Why is the celebration of peace so important today?
Thank you, that's a great question. First of all, I'd like to thank the Lycée for organizing this and deeply thank my colleagues because your presence here today is very meaningful for me, for the consulate, for the Lycée, for the whole community, the French community here. Thank you, merci. Following on what you were saying, who won the First World War? Just an anecdote. When I was in high school, we studied the First World War, and we had a test after that, and we had to write an essay, and we had 2 hours in a classroom. And when we discovered the topic, the question was, who won the First World War? And we were shocked by this question. We found it stupid. And after 2 hours of reflecting about it and writing the essay, we found it was the most interesting question. And of course, the answer was no one. And we tried to explain why. Coming back to your question, what does November 11th represent in France and why it represents peace? You have to go back in history a little bit. And even before the First World War, in 1870, you had a terrible war between France and Germany. And after this war, it was not all about peace. We did not commemorate this war. France, after 1870, was all about revenge. And that's when we started celebrating Bastille Day. In 1871, France never did it before. And we picked the revolution, which was a very nice symbol, but behind that, this day was a day about showing our military power to have a revenge against Germany. Then came the First World War, terrible bloodshed, 10 million casualties. And after that, the situation changed totally, and the commemoration of the First World War was the opposite of the commemoration of the War of 1870. So the armistice comes in November of 1918. Then comes Bastille Day in 1919. And you had a military parade in Paris, as there used to be before the war. But it was not a very, very big thing as you could have expected. November came the first anniversary of the armistice. Not much happened, because the important day was November 2nd, which is in the Christian faith, the day of the death. And for all the families in France who had lost someone, which means every French family, this was the important day, because it was the first day of the death after the end of the First World War. And in fact, The Armistice Day became a bank holiday in France only in 1922 at the request of the veterans. And the veterans wanted this day to be a day of grieving. So this is why from this day we had the last post, and we built monuments in every village with the names of the people, of the soldiers who died, and their age. In any village in France you have this monument. And every year someone reads every name which is written on the monument. And so from this day, the Armistice Day was about remembrance, grieving, and peace. Just one last thing. In 1918 and in the years after, everything changed as well in the way we saw international relations. Because after years of, looking for power and making war for power, the whole community, after this terrible war, looked for other solutions and changed global governance. And I want to underline the fact that it started from here, from the United States, and from a man whose name is Woodrow Wilson, who was president and who proposed these 14 points, and it led to the creation of the League of Nations, and it was about multilateralism, fix our disputes in a peaceful way, and declare, this will come a few years later, but the spirit is already in the 14 points of Wilson, declare war unlawful. Never again. And today it's very important that the four of us are here with you, the younger generation, to remember that we learned from the First World War the importance of multilateralism, of negotiation, of peace. And that's why and I come back to your question, every November 11th, we should reflect about how do we preserve peace? How do we make sure that we find other solutions than war to fix problems, be it negotiation, mediation, UN, etc. And this weekend, after the ceremonies, 60 heads of state and heads of government will gather in Paris for the first peace forum, the Paris Peace Forum, in order to remind everyone in the world, at a time when some people think that multilateralism is not that important, that is the only way to prevent the wars of the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorons les 10 millions de morts de cette hécatombe, qu'on se souvienne d'eux et que le devoir de mémoire perdure. Je vous demande de vous lever, s'il vous plaît. À l'issue de la sonnerie aux morts, nous observerons une minute de silence.
We will now honor the 10 million souls that gave their lives during this hecatomb. We remember them, and that our duty of remembrance endures. I ask you to please stand. After the bell tolls, we shall observe a minute's silence.
Messieurs les représentants consulaires, le lycée français a choisi de dévoiler une plaque commémorative en souvenir de la Grande Guerre.
Thank you, everybody. You can seat again. The Consuls, representatives, and the Lycée Français have decided to dedicate a memorial plaque in memory of the Great War. In memory of the victims of the Great War, we have not forgotten.
Pour clôturer la cérémonie, nous écouterons les élèves de 3e A, dirigés par Magali Sancartier. Nous chantons l'hymne à la joie de Beethoven. Pour les accompagner, au piano Iran Marami et au violon Magali Sancartier.
To close the ceremony, we shall listen to the pupils from 9th grade A, directed by Magali Sancartier, sing the hymn Ode to Joy by Beethoven.